Hello and welcome to the FSF podcast. I am Tim. I am your host, and this is the show that is made by nerds for nerds. So welcome to our almost nerdery. Maybe we'll start the office soon. Who knows? All right. But our guest today that's waiting in the wings is a really super cool nerd, and I've been excited to talk with him for a little bit. He's a fan of many fandoms and is also the founder and CEO of the Nacelle Company. And if that wasn't enough, he's a 4-time Emmy winner. He's a film producer and director of TV shows, comedy specials, and even some podcasts. One of the reasons I'm most excited to talk about him is he's one of the people behind the show, The Toys That Made Us. I'm a big fan of that series, and there's a lot of toys in that I still drool about and dream about and think about. And anyway, that's a whole nother topic. Anyway, and he's also one of the producers of the podcast of Gates McFadden. Of course, that is the incredible Investigates. So let's take a moment to welcome Brian Volk-Weiss to the FSF podcast. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Hey, what's up, Tim? Hello, show.
Howdy. All right. Well,
I like that intro.
Well,
I always feel compelled to do this, especially when the mistake is in my favor. If the mistake worked against me, I wouldn't say anything. 4-time nominated, 2-time winner. We did not. I have not won 4. I have two trophies. Gorgeous. It's my favorite trophy. But only two.
Aha. All right. Well, fantastic. Well, hey, that's still 2 more than I've ever won. So you're fantastic. You're doing great.
I always feel compelled. I'm like, I don't want to take credit for stuff I haven't done.
Yeah, that's one of the things I always worry about. I always call IMDb the wiki of the entertainment world because it's not always completely accurate.
Does it say I've won 4?
I think so. I think so.
Okay. Well,
I think that's where I got that.
Okay, that is correct.
I think so.
Anyway, weird way to start the show. It's like on a
that's okay. That's okay. I was interviewing Gary Whitta a while back, and Gary's a great guy, and I was like, I introduced him as the editor-in-chief of PC Mag or something like that, the American version, and that was like 20 years ago. Because the page that I had looked up some information on him, his IMDb page still said that he was the editor-in-chief of it. It didn't say that he was the once editor-in-chief, that he was. So anyway, yeah. So I always give a chance for our guests to correct everything by introducing it this way. We're nerds. We love a good origin story, and you are the hero of today's story. So take a few minutes to correct the improprieties of IMDb and tell us what got you here. What got you to the point of being the super cool nerd you are today?
I mean, 100% Star Wars. It's a weird way to describe it, but so I was born in late May 1976.
Okay.
So I was like, I have no memory of seeing A New Hope, but I know I saw it. And my mom, after about, I guess, 6 to 12 months of hearing me, and this is, again, I know it's a weird way to describe it, but at 2 or 3 years old, I, of course, did not know what the word documentary meant. But based on what my mom said, it was as though little 2-3-year-old Brian thought that A New Hope was a documentary, because for the next 6 to 12 months, anytime like some parent or somebody would say, Brian, what do you want to do when you're older? I would very seriously be like, well, I intend on joining the rebellion and fighting Darth Vader. And my mom, who did introduce me to Star Trek, but she was a pretty serious lady, and that's an understatement. This started to scare her. So she bought me a book. I still have it. It's the kind of book that you give a 5-year-old about the making of a movie. And I remember seeing it the first time. The Death Star was 12 feet wide and not the size of the moon. C-3PO, there was a human inside it. And honestly, I was about 3 years old when my mom gave me that book. And I always say, and I guarantee you I'm right, if it wasn't for Star Wars, and even Star Wars at such an early age, I guarantee you I'd be either a lawyer or a banker in New York, possibly a dentist. I have a lot of dentists in my family, on my dad's side. But yeah, I'm in show business. I mean, literally, I remember, I think for a little while, I wanted to be a limo driver. And other than that, all I've ever wanted to do, initially, I thought I wanted to be a director. But the older I got and the longer I was in Hollywood, the more I realized the aspect of George Lucas that I worshiped the most. It wasn't his writing. It wasn't his directing. It was the fact that he built a company that was what I like to call self-replicating. So he could take money from movies A, B, and C to film D, E, and F. And he just was able, I mean, he kind of gave up. I think he could have really made a run for becoming a real like Warner Brothers type thing. But he still, the only other person I think in our lifetime who's done it is Tyler Perry. That's another person I look up to tremendously. Again, not only for the creative work, a little difference between George and Tyler, but anyway,
a smidge. Okay,
it's a little. But my point is, it was the fact that he built Lucasfilm and the fact that he built ILM. That was my North Star from before I got out here to this minute.
That's a very cool story. Yeah, I was born in November of '76. So
I'm your elder, Tim. You better be respectful.
I'll do my bestest.
Thank you.
I'll do my bestest, sir. But I have no memory of either A New Hope or Empire at all.
Exactly.
My first memory of Star Wars is Return of the Jedi.
Mine too. So that's interesting. This says a lot about human memory.
Yeah. But I remember after seeing Return of the Jedi and having such an affinity for it, that my dad would go on the weekends and rent Laserdisc players, and he'd bring home the movies on Laserdisc. And
nice.
I remember he would get Empire and New Hope on Laserdisc for us to watch, and that's all I would want to watch all weekend. I didn't care what other movies he got. Like, when I was a little kid, he got like Indiana Jones and stuff, and it didn't click in my mind that Harrison Ford was Han Solo and, Indy. But I was so enraptured by the pew pews and the laser swords and everything else that's all I cared about. That's all I wanted to watch. And and to this day, I still have a special place in my heart for Return of the Jedi, but Empire is my all-time favorite. It's not just my favorite Star Wars movie; it's my all-time favorite movie. That's where I, that movie comes on, and I'm like, popcorn. We're getting popcorn. We could be at the dentist office. I'm like, popcorn. We're getting popcorn. We're going to sit and watch the movie. They could be calling me, Tim, come in no, you got to wait for this scene to finish.
No, it's interesting. Like for me, I always have to say A New Hope is my favorite because I watch it now. I can see the flaws. The pacing is tough to watch. I get it.
It can be, yeah.
But nothing else would have happened without it. So I think I give it a little, and I will say conversely, I mean, Return of the Jedi is not aging as well as the first two, but I love it. I love it. I love Return of the Jedi. I absolutely love it.
I look at, I think a lot of people complained about Phantom Menace because they thought it was too campy in spots and he was trying too hard for some humor. And I'm like, yeah, but he really started that with Return of the Jedi. If we're being 1,000% honest and not looking at the original trilogy through rose-colored glasses, that really started. He wrote that ball rolling in with Return of the Jedi, and then that just kind of carried on into the prequels. So
I agree with you, and I would have agreed with you for at least 10 years, maybe 20. But it's really interesting because I've been doing this for almost 27 years. And
Okay.
I've had a very unusual and bizarre path to get from where I started to where I am now. And what I mean by that is, I started off as a manager of comedians. The first 10 years of my career, that's all I did was I was a manager of
Yeah.
comedians. Then we started doing stand-up comedy specials. Then we became the company that made stand-up comedy specials, and we owned. So, and again, if this sounds familiar, you may refer back to the part where I mentioned the part about George Lucas that I revered. So I built this library of stand-up specials, which allowed me to become a distributor. And then by becoming a distributor and having a library, I was able to make money that allowed me to start making documentaries that, again, we owned. Just again, and I learned this from reading about George Lucas, I always maintained ownership. So we now have well over 2,000 stand-up specials because we've bought libraries. We've been from Toys That Made Us to Icons on Earth. Pretty much every documentary we've made in the last 7 or 8 years, we own, except for the stuff we do with Disney. It's really the only exception. So for the first time this past Saturday, we put out our first ever scripted show, which is RoboForce. We do it with The Rock. It just premiered on Tubi. And reading the comments, like I say this not in a boastful way. I say this in I take responsibility for it way, for better or for worse. It was my idea. I took the original RoboForce name and the character names. We got with all the nonsense. People think there was 50 episodes. There was 1 episode. People talk about the comic books that came with the toys. They quite literally might be the worst comic books ever written. So we literally started from scratch, except for the suction cups and whatever. So, this really was my baby. I had the idea for the whole world and yada, yada, yada. And yes, we had 2 amazing writers, Gavin Hignite in particular. I mean, we wouldn't be here without him. So again, I'm not sitting here trying to take all the credit. What I'm trying to say is it's the first time I had creative input in a scripted way. And then on Saturday morning, the whole world got to weigh in. And it is wild because all of a sudden I understand what George was doing with Phantom Menace so much better and what he was going through. Because if you look at most of the comments on social media and Reddit or YouTube or whatever you're talking or whatever you're looking at, so much of it is like, oh, this is such a great show for kids. I wish I had kids. There's adult themes, but my kids went crazy. So it's all about the kids. And I'm almost 49 and you're also almost 49, but I'm a little closer. I'm in May, but it's so interesting because when you and I both saw A New Hope and Empire, and we don't remember, but we knew we loved it. You and I both vividly remember seeing Return of the Jedi, and we love it now 30, 40, almost 50 years later, sure. But look at our age. My mom and dad, who are the age I am now, they liked Star Wars. They thought it was cool. They recognized the accomplishment compared to every movie that had come before it. But they didn't become like you and me. So it's interesting. I thought RoboForce, I knew it. We designed it on purpose to be for kids and adults. Yes, we did. Don't get me wrong. But it's just so interesting seeing, boom, from day one, kids. And if I'm being honest, I think George Lucas understood that before A New Hope. And it was people like you and me that only kind of caught on to it when Phantom Menace came out and we're seeing the Jar Jar with the tongue getting held at lunch.
Oh, yeah.
We're like, what are you doing? But we were then in our 20s.
Oh, yeah. I was, let's see, 48. I got to do the math. I was 23 when that came out, because I remember that because my son was 6 months old, and when I went to go see it, and we took my wife and I took our 6-month-old son to the theater to go see it. Of course, he will have no recollection of Phantom Menace, but I was like, like this was like my shining moment at that age of my life. I'm like, I'm sharing Star Wars with my son, and I was like, man, we had so many people worried to sit by us because we had a 6-month-old baby. He slept the entire time. It was awesome.
Wow. Well, there's a good joke I could make right now, but I'm going to keep it to myself.
Okay. You can tell me later. All right. All right. So you mentioned something I want to talk about. You mentioned the toys that made us. I have absolutely thoroughly enjoyed that series.
Thank you.
And no, I honestly, I think it's so very cool. I can't tell you how many times I've watched the Star Wars episode alone. It's just because I keep watching it because there's all the toys in there that I would have loved to have had when I was a kid. But anyway, but I see a lot of the toys that I played with in that series, and I think, man, I wish I would have had or kept some of those toys, held on to some of those toys. So what toys in that series, if any, right, it doesn't have to be the Star Wars episode, it could be any of the episodes, what toys had a big impact on you, and maybe one that you wish you still had?
Well, I'll answer in opposite order, I guess. I don't know why.
Okay.
But for some reason, that's what I'm
doing.
Go
for it.
So I'm the opposite. I grew up I didn't grow up in a poor family, but I didn't grow up in a family with a lot of money. So
Same.
For me, it wasn't about keeping stuff. It was about, as I got older and had a little money, getting the stuff everyone else had that I didn't have. So, my basically, without ever talking about it, but in retrospect, looking back, I think my mom was like, you know what? We're a Star Wars family. We're not a Star Wars and G.I. Joe family. We're not, like, she picked one. And she was
That's
like,
what we're going with.
This is our, like, the Podolskis, they could be the G.I. Joe family. The Spinoffs, they could be Transformers. We're Star Wars. And I'd always be like, well, how come the Spinoffs have Transformers and Star Wars and GI? So for me, as I started to get money, it was getting the Cobra hydrofoil, the GI Joe hovercraft, getting the Ultra Magnus I never had, and so for me, it was about, as Samuel Beckett once said in Quantum Leap, to make right where once went wrong. So just getting all the stuff I didn't have. So that's the second answer. Second answer to the second question. First is, it was, number one, unequivocally, I've already told you, Star Wars.
Right.
Then, and this was kind of true in my head, but it wasn't true in reality because they didn't have the deals. But in theory, the second place would be Star Trek. There just wasn't product. So, like, right. I did have some Star Wars stuff, but it was like 2% of my Star Wars collection. And then tied for third place, and these were all in very limited supply due to budgetary issues, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Lego.
Fair.
And by the way, you want to hear something gut-wrenching?
Yeah.
So, again, not to make this the podcast where I'm like complaining about my financial resources of my childhood, but because my parents had said financial budgetary limits, they would go. So I'm from New York, and my dad coming home from work, there was this place in Chinatown where you could get very low budget stuff. Let's put it that way. So if you know where this story is going, you're going to laugh. If you don't, this will blow your mind. So every Christmas, every whatever, my birthday, I would get some Transformers. But they were always the wrong colors. So all my friends had a yellow Sunstreaker. I got a red Lamborghini. Everybody had like a black, whatever, I forget what it was, the SUV kind of thing. Mine was blue. So all my colors were wrong, and it drove me nuts. Do you know where this story is going?
I have an idea, but yeah.
So what my parents were giving me, with no knowledge whatsoever, like none of us knew any of this. Don't forget, as you know, there was no internet.
Right.
These were the original Takara versions of what would become the Transformers. So as I'm sure you know, if you've seen the episode, Optimus Prime was based on a Takara character called Convoy. Like, so,
Yes.
and the thing that, again, you want to cry about, a brand new in the box Sunstreaker might be $700 to $800. I don't even know what the red version was called. Like it had a Japanese name or something.
Right.
That could be worth $4,000 or $5,000. So that my parents were literally giving me all these treasures, and none of them and me had no clue. And they all got thrown out, of course.
Well, of course, yeah. Yeah. My parents, when I was growing up, until my mother married my dad, my natural father and my mother were divorced when I was about 5. My mom married my dad when I was almost 10. But for those years in between, my mom was a single mom with 2 boys at home. And so I didn't have a lot of toys, but I had a buddy who lived down the street who his parents were very gainfully employed, and he got anything he wanted. So I would go over to his house all the time because that's where he had every Star Wars toy. He had every Justice League action figure with the Justice League, and he had all these things, all the G.I. Joe stuff you were mentioning earlier, had it all. He had all the Transformers, all the GoBots. I don't know if you remember Mask.
Of course.
Yeah, he had all the Mask toys. I was in heaven. I'd walk into his room and it was just like, these are all the, my mom was going to like the dollar store to get like, instead of like Chewbacca, it was Dog Man, and
exactly. Yeah. What was this? Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying. So, he's one of those things you make do with what you had, because it was, you didn't, it was the 80s, really didn't know any better. It was like, hey, well, it's as close as I could get. And I remember when he would get tired of playing with something, he would let me have it. And so that was a big bonus. And I remember he gave one of the things I wish I would have held on to. He gave me the Endor playset.
Oh.
And as I got older, I was like, well, I don't really play with toys anymore. And so I got rid of it. I gave it to some other little kid. And it was like the kid played with it for quite a while. And I don't know what's ever happened to it since then. It could be in a dump for all I know at this point. But, I look back at that, I'm like, man, I kind of wish I would have kept that Endor playset because that was just really cool. They had like the couple trees and the rope ladders between them. And
oh, I know. I'll tell you my Endor story. So, do you remember Robin Hood, Den of Thieves with Kevin Costner?
Yep.
One day, my mom and I were in this thing called Toys R Us, and we're walking through the Toys R Us, and they got the bins where all the discounted stuff is, and I remember, that movie, The Toy Line, Famous Disaster, did terribly. And I remember I saw the Robin Hood play set, and it was like 96% off. I mean, it was like literally like, I truly think it was 80% off. It was like 50% off like 4 times. Like you could see 50% off on 50, like So
right, yeah.
I saw it and I was like, yeah, that looks a lot like the Endor Village.
I can make that work.
I can make that work. So I got it home, opened it, put it together and everything. And I'm like, this looks a lot like Endor, like Village, literally. And that is how I learned 25 years before the toys that made us, that they can reuse molds. It was literally the exact same mold. They just changed the colors and like it made a couple other little weird changes. But yeah, and so I literally had it for like probably 90% off what the Star Wars version would have cost.
Oh, that's fantastic. Love it. All right. Let's talk about Investigates, because that's been a really cool podcast. I've enjoyed listening to it. So I'm curious how that all began with you, how your level of involvement began with that. Is that a project where you were like, you know what? I'd like to produce a podcast. I'm going to go talk with Gates McFadden. She'd be really cool as a host. How did this all come about?
Yeah. So we do this show called The Center Seat. And it came out It's the full name of the show is The Center Seat, 55 Years of Star Trek, and it came out, believe it or not, for the 55th anniversary of Star Trek, and it was on the History Channel. One of the producers on the show had a similar background to mine, except instead of being a manager, he had been an agent, and I knew he had represented Gates. So when we were locking up the series, it was 11 episodes, 11 hours. If you're a Trekkie and you haven't seen it, it's on Amazon now. I mean, it's made for you. And if you like, if you know about Investigates, I assume you're a Trekkie. It'd be a very strange podcast to listen to if you weren't. But Gates would kill me for saying that. Sorry, Gates. But anyway, but that being said, yeah, I just said to him, I'm like, hey, dude, do you still like, are you tight with Gates? And he was like, I'm not tight with her, but I had a great relationship with her. And when I stopped being her agent, it was a civil conversation. I was just like, why don't you see if she wants to do the VO? And she did. We really hit it off. One of the things that I at least didn't know about her until I met her, she is one of the funniest people I have ever met in my life. I mean, she has as great a sense. I mean, I've worked with some of the greatest comedians of our time. Literally, you could argue all of them, from Ali Wong to Tom Segura. I mean, Gaffigan, Kevin Hart, Bill Burr, and I put Gates McFadden on that list. She will like me saying that, by the way. So it all evens out. It all evens out.
There you go. It's all about balance.
But that was it. We hit it off. And then one day, I mean, and this happens a lot. I mean, I cannot tell you what I'm about to tell you how, and this is part of why we do it. We put out a press release. We said we had opened a podcast division. By that point, I was already friends with Gates. She texted me and said, hey, I saw the article in Deadline. I'd like to do a podcast. And here's what I can take credit for. I knew Gates McFadden. When she called, I said yes. And then I wrote a fair amount of checks.
Solid.
Yeah, that literally is all I did. The idea of the show was Gates's. The interviews she obviously did. She booked everybody herself.
Oh wow! Yeah.
And the first season she edited all by herself because she wanted to. She wouldn't even let us edit it. Season 2 and 3 we did edit with her. I mean, she was very, very, very involved, to put it mildly. But yeah, she did everything, and I'm very proud to say that. I literally it's all her.
That's very cool. Yeah, I did not know that she was editing her own stuff. But that's cool. I mean, up until recently, so we have active right now. We have 470 episodes in total. 229 of them are sit down interviews like this one. And it hasn't been until about the last 50 or so episodes that I've actually had to start doing some of the editing, and I've had to have a crash course in both video and audio editing, and yeah, it's a
lot of work.
The first couple ones were rough, and those were some very basic edits, some very basic cuts of me going, I hit a button, holy crap, it worked. That's the first couple episodes that I took over, because our producer, we call him Producer John, was him and his wife were going through some medical issues for her, and she's and Kathleen's my co-host, but she's just getting over some surgeries and getting her life back on track and everything. So she's in the recovery mode right now. But yeah, so it was hey, you prioritize your family, I'll take care of this. Because that was the division of work. He did all the editing, I did all the booking of talent to come on and talk, and now I'm kind of wearing all the hats right now, but that's okay because it gives me a better appreciation for what he does, because as soon as he's ready to take it back over, I'll be like, here you go, have it all. Go do that.
That's exactly what happened with Gates after season 1. She was like, and she was adamant about season 1 editing. And then by season 2, we were negotiating with our agent, and he was like, oh, and she wants you to do the editing. And I laughed so hard, because I remember when she said it for season 1 being like, Gates, like, I'm saying this to you as your friend because it'll save me a lot of money, you editing. So I'm really saying this to you as your friend. You really want to do this? And she was like, oh, absolutely. No doubt in my mind. And then season 2, her agent's like, yeah, you can do it. You can do it.
Yeah. I would love to have somebody else do the editing again. I would much rather just be able to sit here and be the beautiful eye candy that I am and talk to somebody on screen and not have to deal with it. But it is what it is. We'll hammer through. We'll make it work. All right. So with a resume like yours, and it seems like you have a ton of projects going, seemingly a lot of irons in the fire. I'm pretty sure it's easy to get tired, get worn out. I find with just, what I do on my end, it's easy for me to get tired and get worn out. So how do you recharge your creative batteries when you're getting to the end of the rope and you're just like, you know what, I got to take a break. Let's go do this. What's your this?
I'm gonna be real honest with you. As crazy as this is all gonna sound, listen, I have not been in LA 7 days in a row since the first week of December.
Okay.
I had a 6 a.m. flight from New Orleans to LA this morning. I couldn't sleep on the plane. I was on a shoot last night that went till midnight. I mean, I'm on like 4 hours sleep now. I think even less. Am I tired? Yeah, I'm tired. But here's the thing. This is why it's probably a longer, stupider answer than you expected. I always say, like, I feel like I'm having a Benjamin Button career. And what I mean by that is, I told you I started off as a manager. And now, which is a very, very, it's not the most fun job. It's not the most, I know one of the most successful managers in history. He probably probably takes home, I would say in a bad year, 12 to 15 million a year. He, in a good year, could take home 25 to 30 million a year.
Wow.
Every single time we talk, every time. He says to me at some point in the conversation, usually it's the first thing he says, how jealous he is of me that I retired from it. So if somebody got to that level and every conversation says he's jealous, and I was a very successful manager, I didn't get close to 30 million a year. Don't get me wrong. So that should tell you all you need to know about management. So again, I've been doing this almost 27 years. The first 10, I just managed. And to now be greenlighting multi-million-dollar cartoons with The Rock and Ryan Reynolds, financing them and building these worlds. And it is, so I'm not really tired. Like I'm invigorated. It used to be, I couldn't sleep because I was scared I was on the wrong life path. And then it became, I can't sleep because I'm going to bankrupt the company like around 2013. And now It's like, I'm so excited I can't sleep because of X, Y, and Z that we're doing. To answer your other question, it really is my family. I almost laughed when you said you had a 6-month-old at Phantom Menace. My wife is I think she would have been in her late teens when Phantom Menace came out. I think my daughter was a negative 20. My daughter's 11. So, I'm very lucky that at this point in my life, when things have gotten so busy and crazy, I have 3 amazing kids. I have the best wife I literally, anytime I have bad luck or a bad day or anything, all I have to do is think of how insane the odds were that I met my wife at all. And I don't feel sorry for myself. So that really is it. All my hobbies I've turned into TV shows and integrated into my career. So the thing I do not connected to that is just go to the LA Zoo with my kids.
Nice. That's a great answer.
Cliche, but true.
No, that's a great answer. Hey, anything you do with your family, and if that helps you, then I think it's a fantastic answer.
Yeah, it's the best. It's the best.
All right, Brian, it's time for the silly question.
I'm ready.
All right. It's really not all that silly. But this happened because somebody asked Kathleen's daughter this question, but not her, and she thought that it was rude and you should never age out of this question. And I agree. So, Brian Volk-Weiss, what's your favorite dinosaur?
Oh, definitely the Triceratops.
I knew I liked you for a reason. See, there we go. That's also my favorite dinosaur.
My favorite living animal is the hippo. It's by far my favorite animal. Always has been. And I feel like the Triceratops is like a hippo, but with badass horns. You know, what they both have in common, I think, because obviously none of us have met a Triceratops. What I love about hippos is they have the capacity for tremendous power and violence. And all they want to do is be left alone. Like, that's it.
Mhm.
Like, they just want to be
Let me
left.
sleep.
They
Let me
just
sleep. Give me something to eat. I'll be fine.
leave me alone. But if for some reason you don't, I can run faster than you. I can literally break you in half with my jaws. I have 50 billion teeth. Like, I weigh 2 tons and I can still run faster than 99% of the animals on my continent. And I feel the same thing about the Triceratops, where it's just this kind of big thing that just leave it alone and you're cool. Man, if you mess with it, like you are not going to do it again. That's what I think.
You're going to have a bad day. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I liked and I've said this before in other interviews. When I was growing up, I always loved the rhino. And I looked at the rhino and I was like, oh, cool. They got the really cool horn. They're this big, powerful animal. And then I saw the Triceratops. I was like, oh, cool. Triple rhino. And I was like, so.
Rhino is my second favorite animal.
Awesome.
And if you haven't seen this clip, there's a clip you can find on YouTube of a hippo, a younger hippo, cleaning its teeth on a rhino's horn while the rhino's sleeping. And the rhino wakes up and realizes what the hippo's doing and starts chasing the hippo. Anytime I find that, like 2 or 3 times a year, it stumbles into my feed. I'll probably watch that 30 times in a row. I think it's one of my favorite clips out there.
I will be looking for that as soon as we're done talking.
Now you got something new to do.
There we go. All right, Brian, thank you so much for being on the FSF podcast today. Where can our listeners and viewers go to find out more about you, your company, projects you got in the works, all that fun stuff?
I'm on Instagram under my name, Brian Volk-Weiss. I'm technically on Facebook, but I rarely check it after they changed everything, and it's so hard to know what to do. The company is the Nacelle Company. We also have it's called the Nacelle Company on Instagram, and that's on everything: Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, whatever. And we also have Toys Nacelle that really covers a lot of what we're doing with our toys and our cartoons, like RoboForce, Biker Mice from Mars, Sectars, Great Garloo, Power Lords. All of those, we do comic books with Oni. So all of that is covered very well on our Nacelle socials and also on our Toys Nacelle's socials.
Perfect. I'll put links for all of those in the show notes down below so people can find you and check you out.
Thank you.
Make sure they're giving you a good follow there. So, guys, if you haven't already, 2 things. Number one, you may have noticed at the bottom of the screen the whole time we were conversing here, there's been a request for you to donate to PanCAN, which is the Pancreatic Cancer Action Awareness Network. Now, if you look, there's a QR code that you can scan in the top right-hand corner, and that goes to Trek Against Pancreatic Cancer. And so that's the group that's headed up by hello, Kitty. And there's my cat.
Oh,
That's the group that's headed up by Armin Shimmerman, Kitty Swink, John Billingsley, Jonathan Frakes, and Juan Carlos Cotto. They each have their own personal stories involved with pancreatic cancer, Kitty Swink, of course, being a 20-year survivor. Please donate. Anything you give is immensely helpful because your donation stacks up against somebody else's donation. Even if you only have $5 to give, your $5 is immensely helpful, considering that federal funding for pancreatic cancer research has been pulled this year. So it's very, very needed. Please consider that. Secondly, if you haven't already, please take this moment to follow the FSF podcast on YouTube. It's the most important thing you can do for us because it helps us ensure that we get more amazing guests like Brian Volk-Weiss here to come on and have these funny moments for you to be able to listen to. So please follow our show and make sure you're following Brian over on all his socials. And remember, all that information is down in the show notes down below. And so thank you to Brian for being on the show. Thank you to all for listening and paying attention to our little pop culture podcast. And on that note, may the force be with you as you continue to live long and prosper. Goodbye.
Copyright 2025 FSF Podcast. Reference any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by FSF Podcast. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@fsfpodcast.com.